Native American elder shares truths about why young people feel hopeless. I want to talk to the young people today. Not talk down to them, not lecture them. I have no interest in that. I have been alive long enough to know that young people do not need lectures. They need truth. And they need someone who is willing to tell it to them without wrapping it in false comfort. So that is what I am going to do. I see you. I see this generation. And what I see breaks something open in my chest. Not because you are weak, but because you are carrying weight that no young person should have to carry. And most of the world is too distracted to notice. You are not lazy. You are not soft. You are not the problem. But something has gone deeply wrong around you. And today I want to name it, because a wound that has no name cannot heal. When I was a young man, the elders in my community had a word for the feeling that comes when a person has lost their sense of place in the world, when they no longer know where they belong or why they are here. It is a heavy feeling, a grey feeling. It sits in the chest like a stone that cannot be moved. Today, that feeling has a different name. People call it hopelessness, depression, anxiety, a mental health crisis. And all of those words are true. But they are only describing the wound. They are not naming what caused it. Let me try to name it. The first truth I want to share is this. Young people today were handed a broken promise. You were told, study hard, do everything right, follow the rules, and life will reward you. You will have stability. You will have opportunity. You will be able to build something real. Many of you did everything you were supposed to do. You studied, you worked, you tried, and then you looked up and the world was not what they described. The homes your parents bought for reasonable prices are now beyond reach. The jobs that were supposed to be waiting have become uncertain and temporary. The stability that was promised feels like something from another era, one that ended before you were old enough to be part of it. And when a young person does everything right and still cannot find solid ground, something breaks inside them. Not their character, not their spirit, their trust. And a person who has lost trust in the world around them begins to wonder, what is the point of trying? Why reach for something that keeps moving away from me? That is not weakness. That is a logical response to a world that has not kept its promises. I am not saying this to make you angry. I am saying it because you deserve to know that the hopelessness many of you feel is not a flaw inside you. It is a response to something real. The second truth is harder to say, but it must be said. Young people today are the most connected generation in human history, and among the loneliest. Every hour you are surrounded by faces, voices, images, messages. Thousands of people reacting and responding and commenting. You have more ways to communicate than any people who have ever lived. And yet, when I ask young people, who truly knows you? Who have you sat with in real silence? Who would you call at 3 in the morning if your world was falling apart? The answers are quiet. And sometimes there are no answers at all. That is a form of starvation, not of food, of connection. Human beings were made for real closeness, the kind where someone sees your real face, not the one you craft for a screen. The kind where you share a fire and a meal and the honest weight of your days. That kind of connection is becoming rare. And without it, a person begins to feel invisible, like a ghost walking through a world full of people who are all looking at screens and seeing only what they choose to show. My people had a saying, a person who has no one to witness their life begins to doubt that their life is real. You were not meant to live unseen. You were not meant to perform for an audience of strangers while starving for one person who truly knows you. The loneliness many young people feel today is not because they are unlovable. It is because the world has replaced real human presence with something that looks like it from a distance but provides none of its nourishment. Now I want to talk about something that I believe is at the very root of this hopelessness. Young people have been robbed of their sense of purpose, not by one person, not by one decision, but slowly, quietly, by a world that turned meaning into a product, something to be bought, consumed, posted about, rather than something to be lived. In the communities where I grew up, a young person always knew their role, not because it was forced on them, but because they were woven into something larger than themselves. They were part of a family that needed them, part of a community that saw them, part of a story that did not begin with them and would not end with them. That gave their small daily actions a weight that had nothing to do with success or fame. A young boy carrying water for the elders understood. This matters. I matter. Not because someone liked my photograph, but because real people in my real life need what I am doing right now. Today, young people are told they can be anything, which sounds like freedom, but for many it becomes a kind of paralysis. When everything is possible, nothing feels necessary. And when nothing feels necessary, a person wanders. They try one thing and then another. They scroll through other people's lives looking for a clue about what their own life is supposed to look like. And the searching never ends. Because what they are looking for cannot be found in a screen. It can only be found in genuine commitment to something real, to a person, to a craft, to a community, to a value that you would protect even when it costs you something. Purpose is not discovered by looking. It is discovered by doing, by showing up, by staying when it is hard. And the modern world does everything it can to prevent young people from staying anywhere long enough to discover that. Let me be honest about something else. The voices that young people hear most often are not the voices of elders. They are not the voices of wisdom that has been tested by decades of real living. They are the voices of people who are famous for being famous. People who have built their lives on attention rather than substance. And I do not blame the young people for listening. When you are hungry and someone offers you food, you eat, even if the food does not truly nourish. But the voices that are loudest are not always the voices that carry truth. I think about what it would mean if every young person had access to one real elder. Not a celebrity, not an influencer, an elder. Someone who had lived through failure and grief and loss and still found a reason to rise. Someone who had nothing to sell. Someone who simply sat with them and said, "Let me tell you what I have learned." The absence of that relationship in the lives of young people today is one of the great, quiet tragedies of this era. And I believe it is contributing more to this hopelessness than most people are willing to admit. There is one more truth I want to share before I tell you what I believe the way forward looks like. Young people feel hopeless in part because the world has shown them too much too soon. By the time a child today is 12 years old, they have seen more suffering, more conflict, more injustice, more darkness than most people 100 years ago would see in a lifetime. They have watched it all on a small screen in the palm of their hand, and they were never taught what to do with it. They were never given the tools to hold grief without being consumed by it. They were never shown how to care about the world without being destroyed by caring. They were never taught the difference between awareness and responsibility, that knowing about suffering does not mean you alone must fix it. So young people carry the weight of the entire world on their young shoulders. And when they cannot lift it, When no amount of posting or protesting or grieving seems to change it, they collapse inward, not because they do not care, because they care so deeply and feel so powerless that hope becomes dangerous. Because hope means you might be disappointed again, and they are so tired of being disappointed. So now I want to speak to what I believe can bring hope back. Not a program, not a campaign, not a solution that comes from the same world that created the problem. Something older than that. To every young person listening, find one real thing and give yourself to it. Not the thing that gets the most attention, not the thing that looks best from the outside. The thing that when you are doing it, you forget to check your phone. The thing that when you finish it, leaves you feeling more like yourself than you were before. And then, find one real person. Just one. And be honest with them. Not curated, not performing. Honest. Show them your real questions, your real doubts, your real fears. You will be surprised what that one honest conversation can do to the stone in your chest. And if you are young and you have an elder in your life, a grandparent, an old neighbor, a teacher who has lived long, go to them. Ask them your hardest questions. They have things to give you that no screen can provide. They have already survived the things you are afraid of. And their survival is a message that it can be done. I am an old man. I will not pretend otherwise. But I want you to know something, young people. When I look at this generation, I do not see the hopeless. I see the broken-hearted, which is entirely different. The broken-hearted still feel. They still care. They have not gone numb. And that means there is still something alive inside them that can be reached. You were born into a complicated world at a complicated time. That is true. It would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. But every generation that came before you faced a world that felt impossible, and most of them found a way to carry it. Not by solving everything, but by choosing every morning to keep walking. I am asking you to keep walking, not blindly, not without questions, but forward, toward real things, real people, real moments that belong to you and cannot be taken away by any algorithm or economy or broken promise. Your life is not a problem to be solved. It is a story to be lived. And the best parts of your story have not been written yet. I believe that. I hope someday soon you will too.